I'd like to just add a couple of things that I was thinking about in our covering Anne Carroll Moore. And that is not only to add how personable she was and how the children that she came in contact with were the center of her focus in how she designed children's libraries and collections for them, and the attitude that she had about developing good character in children and allowing them to have, access, which were all new concepts for public libraries that she was introducing. She also introduced very creative programming. She loved to do programs that were centered around events in the community and special subjects and holidays and that type of thing. She was an incredible supporter of story time. She saw both the special programming and also the storytelling as key to a child's reading and learning. It also brought in people to the library, and so she had that family and community aspect to library usage and children's services. She was very involved in the American Library Association. She helped found the Children's Librarian section in 1900, and she also, through her work with ALA, visited many foreign countries. And the first children's library in Stockholm, Sweden, was was given her credit for all the work that she did with them to make that possible, and that was in 1911. She authored several books. One of the ones that I would recommend to you, if you can find a copy, is The Three Owls, which she wrote in 1931, and also A Century of Kate Greenaway, which she wrote in 1946. She had many friends in the literary community. She reviewed extensively, and she was also a literary critic. She fostered relationships that helped her be an advocate for children's services, as well as become a leading figure in the library world. She really felt that children's libraries needed to be the center of libraries, not a second thought, and she worked her entire life to that cause. She left the New York Public Library in 1941, and she didn't really retire. She just retired from that job, and she went and she started teaching in the library studies program at Berkeley in the graduate program there. And she continued to write and to lecture and to participate, and the awards that she won and the recognition that she got were extensive, but that wasn't what she was about. She was all about what you brought to the table as far as providing good library services to children. She passed away in 1961. And her successor at New York Public Library wrote a biography about her in 1972, and Francis Sayers is the librarian's name, and the biography is called Anne Carroll Moore, a Biography. A simple life, one that was full, and one that was very meaningful and impacted librarian and libraries tremendously. I think I would be remiss if I didn't go back and discuss one of the icons in a little bit more detail. He's also one of my favorites because he was a very complex man, and he had a very dark side to him as well as a very brilliant side. Talking about Melville Dewey, and Melville Dewey was an extremely well-educated man. He was very smart. He was educated at Amherst, and he started his work on the Dewey Decimal System while he was at Amherst, and people were so impressed with him that he was offered the assistant librarian's job at Amherst, and he continued to develop and implement his classification system there. He served as the assistant librarian at Amherst from 1874 until 1876, and in 1876 he decides to leave Amherst and go to Boston. In 1883 he becomes the chief librarian at Columbia University. And from there, he goes on to be the director of the New York State Library in 1888. So in a very short period of years, he has really elevated his career from one position to the next, and each one is broader in scope. In 1888, he was also, he became the Secretary and Executive Officer of the University of the State of New York. And he and his wife were very influential in the social circles in that area, as well as Dewey in the library community. He is considered an icon and a pioneer in American librarianship. Even though he's known for his, his most famous work, which is the Dewey Decimal System, he was much broader thinker of that. He saw the state library as instrumental in the development of school and public library services. And that's exactly where we are today with that philosophy. He also developed hanging vertical files, and if you've worked in a library, in past libraries, you know that vertical files were a very important part of the way that information was kept. Dewey was very critical of development of libraries, and he was very critical of the administration of libraries. He created his own standards and published them in the New Ross Standard, and that became very influential. And he also went on to form a company called the Library Bureau, and it specialized in library furniture and equipment. It also sold services, which was new at that time. And he was, again, that businessman came through, and as he merged, this company was merged with others, it ultimately became Remington Rand, and not only did it make him a nice profit, it also evolved into one of the biggest library supplier companies in the nation. Dewey created the Columbia School of Library Economy, which was really the first library school. And he really thought that there needed to be better educated librarians, both in public and school sectors, and that the only way they were going to get this kind of education is if they went to a school that specialized and focused on libraries. He trained librarians, but he also encouraged mostly women to become librarians. And he really wanted young women to become librarians. And he, here he is sharing libraries and developing new ways to send collections into rural areas and all of this. And at the same time, he's known as a racist and a bigot. A racist and a sexist. He and his wife started a social kind of resort spa at Lake Placid, and they denied any access to membership to Jews. He was adamant that the fact that Jews could not join his club. And then there was a second one in Florida that had the same kind of membership criteria to it. Dewey wanted to go high up in ALA's ranks, and he was kept away from that because, not only because of anti-Semitic tendencies, but because of his womanizing and because of his inappropriate gestures and approaches to women. Many, many women said that he had made inappropriate advances to them. So this sadly kept one of the most brilliant minds in libraries from going up the ranks in an organization that he helped support and give credibility to. He was an extremely interesting, complex man, and if you ever get a chance to read a biography by him, not by him, but about him, I would suggest it. And one of my favorites is called Irrepressible Reformer, a biography of Melville Dewey. It was written in '96, and it's by Wayne Wiegand, W-I-E-G-A-N-D. Thanks very much for listening to these lectures, and I hope it will spark in you to look more deeply into the personalities you run across in your readings and find out a little bit more about them. As I said when I started the lectures, there's just so many unique and interesting people in the world of library. Thanks.